What I want to do now is talk a little more about Nikolas Cruz and his behavior. Who better to do that than human behavior expert and jury consultant Susan Constantine. She's also in Florida. She's in Orlando. Susan, always good to have you on the program today. Thank you for making time for us. So many people watching this trial, Susan, are commenting on Nikolas Cruz's behavior, how he's looking sitting there. And so we wanted you to kind of look through some of the pieces of video that we've gathered. First up, how he's sitting there at counsel table with his hands on his head, sometimes even plugging his ears, looking down, drawing. What are your takeaways watching that behavior, please?
Well, first the thing that I noticed, Julie, is that with a person that is trying to present less intimidation, they will lower themselves either in their seat or they will appear more cowardly. The other thing is, what's his psychopathy behind this, right? So we're kind of connecting the two, because behavior, there's also his psychology, you know, where he is on this possible autism spectrum and why he's responding the way he is. And what I have concluded is that with his head down, they tend to either overreact or block out. That's part of that autism spectrum. The other thing is plugging the ears and patting the head or covering the head, which is a form of blocking, could be auditory and sensory disengagement. So it's an overstimulation of when you're hearing those gunshots, and you see him when he was rubbing his head, and it's a signal that he's being overwhelmed by it as his form of a meltdown. So that's what I'm seeing. I don't think that this is something he is contriving. I think it's actually what he is feeling. But he has a dissociative type of personality, that why he cannot make eye contact. So it's a part psychology, and also too with his body language tells us what he's thinking and what he's feeling or not feeling.
Appreciate it, Susan. And another little bit of added perspective here. This particular clip was where in the courtroom, the jury was looking at some video evidence taken by one of the students, very graphic evidence being played at that time. And the gallery, I think it's also important to point out, the gallery who we were seeing in that frame is not seeing everything. They're not seeing the autopsy photos. They're not seeing all of the video. It's being restricted. What they can see is being limited by the court for good reason. So they can hear things, obviously, as you know, the sound system is going, sounds of the children screaming, for instance, they can hear that, but autopsy photographs, for example, they are not looking at in the gallery. I wanted to ask you about another piece of video, please. Oh, here we go. Here's a look at, before we move on to that other piece of video, the partition to show how the gallery would be looking at this and not the actual photograph. So to give everybody at home watching along a frame of reference, those folks in the courtroom watching aren't seeing everything. Susan, want to draw your attention, please, back in time to that surveillance video. I think a lot of people didn't even realize existed, of Nikolas Cruz going into the subway, buying himself an icy after he did the massacre, then going into McDonald's, sitting down with a fellow student. His sister, by the way, Nikolas Cruz shot. Thankfully, she survived, but still shot multiple times, and he didn't know at the time that there's Nikolas Cruz. You can see the spotlight on him. Susan, what are you seeing as we walk through these videos together, please?
Yeah, when I'm seeing here, the act has already happened, right? So that sense of adrenaline now has come down. He now has normalized his emotions. So that's that part of that dissociative type of personality, the antisocial personality, all on that same spectrum psychologically. He can function normally because he's separated himself from the actual act. And you know what, at this point in time, he feels like success, right? So you can see that he's already committed this act. Now he's moved on to the next stage, which is acceptance, elation. He's proud of himself. And then all of that goes with that he feels more comfortable. It's already done. He's already committed the task he was planning to do. So all that high adrenaline fight or flight response is already gone. That's already dissipated, and now he's more centered. He's got his emotions more under check, but he's very calculated. You can see how he can function He can go from 0 to 100 in a split second. He can disassociate from the act and then become completely normal. This is a person who is very dangerous, which we know, and there is obviously some psychological issues that are going on, that he is capable of doing that. That's one of the reasons why I'm teaching through human intel. It's so important, and I'm so passionate about this, Julie, is that we have to train these schools and government agencies how to be able to detect these type of people and their behavior, so that we're not at this place right now, so that we can see that a person that is capable and dissociate themselves from an act and then be able to do some of these types of horrible, horrific acts. So that's what we're doing. We're not just talking about it. We're doing something about it, Julie.
Appreciate that, Susan, very much so. So do you think, we had a question from our newsroom about this we wanted to ask you about today. Is any of this acting, or is it really like his personality, as you described, that ability to dissociate himself with the heinous act and then buying the icy later on?
I don't think it's acting at all. I think it's his mental state of mind. I don't think that he's just pretending. I don't think he's that great of an actor, because I think that's just who he is. He is a very dangerous person, somebody that is not in touch with reality. He can switch from this evil person to being perfectly calm. That's part of this whole manipulation that they use. If you've done any research in these types of personalities, this is where they're able to detach and act is really it's actually fascinating how they're able to do that. But they can do that. They can separate themselves. That's why they are so dangerous, because they're capable of being able to do that.
Oh, so well said, Susan. Speaking of signs, potential signs ahead of time, you touched on that and how everyone can better recognize things. We're all looking back in time, of course, wondering, were there any red flags? What was missed? Yeah. Some photographic evidence has been introduced to this jury in the penalty phase. We want to show you some of these pictures. Nikolas Cruz took these of himself using his cell phone. The one on the left side of your screen at home, going back to 2017, the fall of 17. And then on the right side, of course, this is just in the days leading up to the shooting. We know the shooting was on February 14th, 2018. Susan, is anything about his body language saying anything in particular to you, please?
Yes, and so this is what we see with him holding the machine gun. This is a thrill seeker, all right? So this is a part of that elation, like he's so turned on, he's so excited, all that adrenaline is coming. So this is what we call this like duping delight, this thrill-seeking expression. He's happy because he knows what he's about to. He's so excited about it. There is a sense of emotion that comes out, and that's why we see, actually it's a genuine smile. This is someone that's really excited about it. Now, on the other side, when you see him in the combat wear, so to speak, this is the person that's now gearing up, right? He's got the camouflage on. He's got his hand behind his back. You know, you see this a lot in military. So see how he's able to switch? This is part of his psychology, how he is able to show these signals. These two pictures are very important for anyone to look and saying, okay, there's some issues going on, because when you see a thrill seeker, someone that is excited about carrying out a heinous act, they tend to feel very excited about it, glorious about it, right? There's that honeymoon type of expression. And then now he's going to switch, and he's now getting his game on, right? Game on. He's got the military wear on. He's ready to go. So this tells a story that is like a prelude to what he just did a couple of years ago. This is frightening to me.
It absolutely is, Susan. It is frightening, it is sinister, it is sickening. And we'll see what this jury does in terms of penalizing him. Susan Constantine, human behavior expert and jury consultant, thank you so much for all of that analysis.